of Gibbs Realty and Auction Company, Incorporated, has worked as listing broker for HUD for the past 6 years in 16 South Carolina counties. Now working as listing agent for HUD marketing managers Afori, Pemco, and Hometelos in parts of South Carolina and also North Carolina, Darrell and Wendy Gibbs of Gibbs Realty strive to represent HUD in promoting HUD properties, home ownership, and the stabilization of communities by marketing these properties and reaching out to the real estate community to help agents understand the HUD process. Darrell and Wendy have 6 offices statewide in Easley, Columbia, Fort Mill, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, and Hilton Head. Thanks for joining us today, Darrell and Wendy. Now we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sharon. We appreciate so much the opportunity to come to the South Carolina Association of Realtors, work with our fellow realtors in understanding the HUD process. And we want to welcome everyone to the HUD M&M 3, the South Carolina HUD Sales Training Class. The new HUD contract, the M&M 3 is what we call it, was initiated in October of 2010 and has many changes that you as a selling agent need to be aware of to successfully sell HUD homes. Let's go through the HUD process flow. This is something new that has been initiated by HUD in order to make the process of getting that property to closing much more fluid. Of course, when we begin the process, it begins at HUD in this particular area, which is 1A. The Home Ownership Center in Atlanta has 4 different groups that they work with in order to get the property ready for market. First of all, there's the Mortgage Compliance Manager, called the MCM, the Field Service Manager, Asset Management Companies, and then there is the closing agents. The results of these changes have been that there's a new process that makes everyone now accountable to HUD. The process makes everyone competitive and also increases the quality of service and the level of service that HUD expects from their people that work for them, their vendors. Quality control is now implemented each step of the way, and the property is rejected and sent back to the previous step if there's an issue with any particular property. And I know that those of you who have actually worked in HUD in the past appreciate that they are trying to implement a quality control system. Of course, HUD's desire is to ensure that every property is safe and marketable before it reaches the market. Let's go through the flow chart that we went through a while ago and kind of explain who these 4 entities are. MCM is one nationwide contractor, and of course for HUD, that is Michelson, Connor, and Bull. The responsibility of Michelson, Connor, and Bull and their nationwide contractor is to ensure clear, marketable title and ensure that the FHA foreclosure process is complete on any properties that they have. Of course, those of you who know about HUDs, maybe some of you do not know where we get our inventory at. Basically, that is our inventory comes from HUD after they purchase a bulk of properties that were originally FHA foreclosures. So the responsibility of the MCM is to ensure that this is marketable and that the process of the foreclosure for FHA is complete. You have what's called the FSM, and FSM stands for Field Service Manager, and there are 5 right now in Area 1A of South Carolina. Now, their responsibilities is to ensure the property is safe and secure. They also perform maintenance and inspections on behalf of HUD. Then you have the AM, the Asset Management Company. There are 3 asset management companies now in the 1A area. We have Hometelos, Afori, and Pemco. Their responsibilities is primarily to manage and market the sales process on any HUD home that is assigned. They ensure the properties are priced accurately and achieve for HUD the shortest hold time for the highest return. They also contact and work with listing brokers to facilitate with the sales process. They're also interested, very much so, in promoting home ownership and stabilization of communities. They are here to ensure customer service and satisfaction. Then there's the closing agents. And of course, the closing agents is the attorney that HUD has contracted with in our area to close properties that go under contract. And the closing agent for HUD in our area in 1A is O'Brien Law Firm. They handle all the closings and account for the funds. Let's talk for a few minutes about showing HUD properties. Every property that HUD has, if they have a listing broker, they will have the showing instructions on any property that HUD has in the MLS remarks. Now, here's something that's completely different, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like for you to pay close attention. There's going to be several things that's different about the process that we've had in the past as compared to today. Properties now that are HUD will have lock boxes on them, and the old HUD key will not work. So it's very important that you go to the MLS remarks for any listing broker for HUD to find out how to show that property. When you do get to the property as an agent that has an NAID number and certified by HUD, one of the most important things that you do is sign in on the sign-in sheet, and this is usually on the kitchen counter. Once you leave the property, please make sure it's secure and return the key into the lockbox so it continues to be shut. By the way, one of the things that we are very happy about is that HUD has some wonderful properties, and believe it or not, this is a HUD property. And we are very happy with some of the properties we are receiving at this time. And what our job is, as far as the listing broker, is to promote these homes and promote the nice homes that are out there. What is a HUD home? Let's talk about that for a few moments. And of course, whatever has been said in the past, it's completely different. A HUD home is a single family residence that was purchased with an FHA loan, and the loan went into default, and FHA foreclosed on it. It's not a HUD foreclosure. That's not what we say. HUD has no foreclosures. They have property assignments, and they actually purchase portfolios from the FHA. Now, HUD acquires the property and then markets and sells it by online bidding, giving the priority to owner-occupants first, then to nonprofit organizations and government entities. Every HUD home is sold as is, which means there's no repairs, warranties, guarantees, or representations made by HUD as to the condition of that home. Homes are offered at fair market value based on an appraisal and by the listing broker's broker price opinion. Now, HUD's mission is to promote fair housing. HUD's mission is to increase home ownership and support community development and increase access to affordable housing free of any discrimination, including race, color, religion, national origin, sex, handicap, or familial status. Very much adhere to, and we are required to adhere to, fair housing. HUD, as of October 2010, has made some projections that we think will be interesting for all of you who are realtors in South Carolina. In 2010, October, there was approximately 68,000 HUD homes on the market. Now, it is projected by the end of this year, there will be over 128,000 HUD homes for sale. That's almost double the inventory that is currently available. Nationwide, 60% of all new sales are FHA loans. And if any of you have actually done work with financing and helping folk to purchase properties, know that in the past couple of years, that has been the major source of financing through FHA. And of course, some of these properties will be going into default, and of course, they're expecting the inventory to increase at that time. Now, let me give you some more resources on the HUD process, and these are the asset management sites and some of the sites that you can become familiar with in order to become acquainted with what is happening in the HUD process. You have several asset management sites. These are the folk who actually oversee the marketing of the properties through the listing broker, and they have their actual training for that asset management company, all their procedures and forms on these sites. It'd be good for you to write these down. First one is hometelos.com. Second one is hometelosfirst.com. On either one of these sites, you can be directed to HomeTelos. You have reo.com, and then you have HUDpimco.com. They have additional information that you may not have been familiar with, and they have their own particular procedures, we would recommend that you read through. In the main nationwide website, and if I could say anything to you today, the most important thing you do is to bookmark this particular website. It's HUDhomestore.com. This is going to be the source for you to find out information on all of the properties that are available through HUD. Even though it may be a Home Telos, a Fori, or a PIMCO property, all of the properties will be listed on the main HUD website, HUDhomestore.com. We're going to deal in just a couple of minutes with something else concerning this particular website. You're going to have your brokers and all agents that are under that broker sign up on this site. There are other sites that we would recommend that you look at, and that is www.hud.gov, and particularly for South Carolina, www.sha.state.sc.us. Let's ask the question, can I advertise a HUD home? And the great answer to this, and it includes everyone that is a licensed real estate agent and has your NAID number, yes, you can. All registered selling agents can show and advertise available HUD homes. But there are certain nuances and certain requirements in order to be able to show and to be able to advertise. First of all, you must adhere to HUD's advertising guidelines. That means that you're to advertise in a professional and ethical manner. And those advertised prices that HUD has on their properties must also match HUDhomestore.com. Another thing I would say to you, and this is very important, HUD really they consider this a very important point. Do not imply exclusivity. In other words, that you are the only HUD broker out there. They're asking you not to imply exclusivity, and always on all of your information or your marketing, make sure you use the equal housing logo. When you're promoting any HUD property, please be very positive and promote HUD. And by that we mean, not a distressed property, because they're not distressed properties. Don't make any reference to HUD, FHA, that this is a foreclosed property, bank-owned property, must sell, distress, or any other negative comments. We ask you to please show this in a positive manner, because these HUD homes are nice and they are in the community, and we're not wanting to try to give any implication of them being distressed. Do not place, by the way, a sign on any property or in the yard. Now, as a listing broker, we present our signs. We're required to do that. But you can use some directionals to that particular property. So if you want to use a directional, please do so. We would not like 20 on the corner, but if you want to use a directional, you're more than welcome to do so. Now, let's talk about step one. Make sure, this is what we were talking about a while ago, that your broker is registered with HUD. This new home site, HUDhomestore.com site, we're asking every broker, every owner or broker of any company to, first of all, go on the site and register. This is very important. And then after that, a broker registers, every agent can go on and get registered and have a bidder number. If your broker is registered as a licensed agent, you can sell a HUD home using your broker's NAID number. Broker's not registered, once again, he or she needs to register today. If you do not have your NAID number, it will not go through. Of course, you will need to present your SAM's application, and normally that application takes up to 45 days, which averages out to 6 to 8 weeks to process. Broker must renew their NAID number annually, and of course, there's no notice that's giving you this, so you need to make sure that you have it in your calendar. The NAID number is expired. It usually takes about 45 days to process, so please make sure that you are aware of the NAID number and how important it is to keep it valid. Let's talk about step two in creating a selling agent or a bidder account with HUD. Your broker, once again, will need to create their account first, then you can create yours. The broker will need to have his active NAID number before an account can be created. You will now be ready to place bids on available homes by logging into your bidder account on the new nationwide HUD website, www.homestore.com.
This is your home page for HUDHomestore.com. This is what you will see when you log in, when you click on HUDHomestore.com. Just an overview of the home page. You have your home section there. You have your HUD news, the resources. A little tab across the top there has your NAID registration, a little gray tab. You also have Find a Broker, Property Contacts, and the Facts. The Facts is real important too. That it will sometimes answer a question you may have. It has a lot of good information under the Facts tab. The big blue area there that says HUD Homes, that's pretty much telling you how to navigate around the HUD Home Store site. And then you have your map of the United States. That's where you can actually just click on South Carolina and it'll bring up all the South Carolina available properties. Or if you want to search further than that, it has a complete search bar there where you can search by county, city. You can search by many different means on that search bar to find your buyer or property. Then at the bottom it has more resources and more special programs that HUD has. To register as the selling agent bidder, that was at the top of the page where it says bidder. You can register as a bidder. Your broker will, as Darrell was saying, your broker will need to register first, and then you as a selling agent can register. And you'll actually be logging into your bidder account whenever you put an offer in, whenever you search for properties. You want to do that from your bidder account. There was also a tab as the public can also register. The public can go up there and register. And you say, why would the public need to register on HUD Home Store? Well, it helps them. They can actually save their searches. They look for properties. They can save searches, save different properties so they can watch, while it's available on the market. From there, you will go from the HUD homepage. You can view on that bar that we were showing you. It shows the latest HUD news. Then on that gray bar, it'll show where you can view all of the HUD resources available. There's a lot of different resources that HUD has and websites. You can view those from there. Your NAID registration tab, that's going to be an important tab. You can actually check the status of your registration from that tab. And also you can download the SAMS 1111 form, the NAID registration form for the broker. You can download that from there and fill it out, and it tells you the address of where to send that. I understand it's now the Department of HUD in Columbia. It'll give you the address for Columbia, South Carolina. Also, there's info on finding a broker, property contacts, the facts tab. You can search the properties. You can search them by state, county, city, zip code, price range, the status. If you have like a buyer that is, say, just a good neighbor next door buyer, just one that's looking for something in that program, you can search by the status that the property is in. If you know the address of a property, like say you have a buyer and they've gone past a home and they say, I think this is a HUD home, but it's not on you can't find it as available on the HUD Home Store site, you can actually put in the address, if you know the address, and hit search, and if it is in the HUD system, it should pull up and tell you who the asset company and possibly even who the listing broker is. On this tab, this is where I just clicked on the main HUD Home Store page. I clicked on South Carolina, and it's just going to bring up all the properties that are available at that time in South Carolina. And you'll notice that in the middle right there at the top it says page. So there's like probably 20 or 30 pages of properties in South Carolina that you could scroll through. But you'll see it'll have a picture of the property there on the left column. It'll show a picture, then it'll give you your HUD case number. Just an overview of this page. It'll give you your property address, the list date. It'll also have a little icon. If it's a new property, it'll have a little red circle there that says new. If it's a recently reduced property, it'll have like a little yellow icon that'll say reduced. Also there you will have the listing period that property is in. That column there will tell you if it's an exclusive listing period, extended listing period, or a lottery listing period. We'll go over those periods in a minute because that means that only certain buyers can bid on a HUD home during those periods, listing periods. If you were to click from that page, if you were to click on the case number, you saw a property you liked and you clicked on the case number, it would bring up this page. It's what we call the property detail sheet. It tells you a little bit about that property. On the top left, it will tell you the case number and what eligible bidders can bid on this property at the time. This one will say owner occupants, nonprofits, and government agencies only can bid on this property. So this is a property in an exclusive bidding period. It'll tell you the bid deadline. That top left is going to be telling you when you have to get your bid in on any property in order to meet the deadline. And if you don't meet the deadline, the property could go under contract before you put your bid in. So that top left, the date there, the time, it'll give you the date, the days, the hours, and the minutes left that you can actually place a bid on this property. Down further, you'll see your different tabs there. You have your property info tab, which is the page we're on now. Excuse me. You'll have your addendums tab. From that addendums tab, you're going to be able to get a lot of good information. I'll go over that in a minute. You have your maps tab, which will tell you how to get to the property. Your agent information tab, which will tell you, it's a lot of good information there too. It'll tell you who the listing broker is. It will tell you who the asset company is. It'll also have an email address for both, so you can contact either if you need to. If there's any question you ever have on a property, if the listing broker can help, that'll save the asset company from being bombarded with calls. Whoever the listing broker is, we're here to help you. We're here to help you submit your offer, to find the property, to know what the situation, the bid period. We're here to help you sell these HUD homes. Then down further, you'll see the picture of the property, the main picture, and then underneath that you can scroll. You have a little slideshow there of the interior pictures, which can kind of give you and your buyer an idea of what the property looks like. Then you have your property information column, which tells you all a little bit about the property. It tells you anywhere from when it was lit, when the appraisal date was, how many bedrooms, baths, all the specifics of the property. Then on the second column, you have your listing information. That's where it's telling you the list date, the listing period. Like this one may be in a listing period for 30 days. It might be an exclusive listing period, but your bid deadline will be a different date. So you have to watch that top left for your bid deadline. We'll talk a little bit about your buyer categories for HUD. That's how these exclusive, extended, and lottery periods are set up. You're going to have to know what your buyer category is. Of course, with HUD, the first and main category, the one that HUD gives priority to on selling the homes, is your owner occupants. Their main goal is to get owner occupants in the homes. An owner occupant must live in the home as their primary residence for at least 1 year. That is a must. They can't bid on a home as an owner occupant unless they're willing to live there at least 1 year as primary residence. They also cannot have purchased a HUD home as an owner occupant in the last 2 years. Then you have your investors, and you have your government agencies and HUD approved nonprofit organizations. And if you had someone that was wanting to become a nonprofit, information on becoming one, the information is on www.hud.gov. Information on becoming a nonprofit organization. The listing periods. This is one of the main changes that we're seeing with the new HUD process. There are definitely changes in the listing periods. You have to watch those dates. Sometimes it'll say if it's an exclusive period especially, it'll give a date for the exclusive period, but the bid period could be way before that exclusive period runs out. Properties are now listed daily. Friday is no longer the day that all the HUDs hit the market. They could hit the market on a Saturday, Sunday, or any day of the week. And the listing periods, again, they're listed as either a lottery period, exclusive, or extended. Exclusive, that's kind of like what the old period was owner-occupant. and extended is kind of like your all bidder stage for those that are used to the old way they used to call the periods. A little bit on your lottery period. The listing is always for 7 days in the lottery period. It's available only to nonprofit agencies, government agencies, and only if it's noted under the lottery period, if it's noted GNND, which is your Good Neighbor Next Door program. So all lottery properties are not available for GNND, just those that are specified. You'll also want to make a note as a selling agent that HUD does not pay a commission on these properties, nor do they pay closing costs. So if you have a lottery property and you have a Good Neighbor Next Door wanting to bid, you will need to, in order to collect a commission, you will need to work out a buyer's agency agreement and an agreement with that buyer in order to collect a commission. Also on the lottery properties, these are not showing up, they're not listed in the MLS because they're not available to all the general public. They're also not getting a commission, so they're not going to be in the MLS. These properties you actually have to search for on HUDhomestore.com. Nonprofit and government agencies, they will have their own NAID number. Therefore, they can bid without an agent. They can bid on their own. A Good Neighbor Next Door properties, like I say, they have to be indicated on the lottery listing, and the agent does have to actually submit a bid for them. On your owner-occupant period, on your different periods, your exclusive period is your owner-occupant period. And on this owner-occupant period, they've now broken it down into 2 categories. One's for your FHA insurable properties and insurable with escrow, and the other owner-occupant period is for your uninsured properties. So it's breaking down a little bit more than what it used to be. To try to break it down where you can understand, and you'll see why we're trying to stress that this is a major change with HUD. On your 30-day exclusive owner-occupant bidding period, when the property says exclusive bidding period, the first 10 days of the 30-day period, the first 10 days are sealed bidding. Therefore, HUD is not opening up, none of the asset companies are opening up any of the bids for the first 10 days. So you can get your bid in any time during that 10-day period as long as it's before midnight of the 10th day. On the 11th day, that's when the bids will all be opened. Winning bid could be accepted on that 11th day, and the property will disappear off the website. It'll no longer be available unless something happens where the bid is canceled. But on that 11th day, you could actually have a bid accepted. If a winning bid is not accepted, the next 20 days are daily bidding for owner-occupants only, and a bid could actually be accepted daily. So you'll want to make sure you get your bid in by the end of the day if you have someone wanting to bid on that property. Then if you get all the way to day 31, where it's been on the market for 30 days just for owner-occupants, then you have all bidders can bid on that property. It'll be called an extended bidding period, and it'll go daily for all bidders, including investors. If the property is an FHA uninsurable property, okay, we just talked about the insured and the insured with escrow. If the property is an uninsurable property, it'll say UI, uninsurable, in the type of financing. The first 5 days are sealed owner-occupant bidding or exclusive bidding. So they only have 5 days, and then on the 6th day they open the bids. And if it is not accepted, then it will go to daily all bidder status or extended. So your investors can start bidding on day 6 if it's still available. Okay, back to the HUD Home Store main page. On this, I'm just wanting to point out over on that right-hand side where you have your listing information. It'll give you your list price and your as-is value. You want to make note that as-is value is the appraisal value. That's the HUD appraisal value. So if the property actually gets a reduced price, the list price and the as-is value may be different. Then it lists the FHA financing. This one is actually insured with an escrow. It could also say insured. It could say uninsured. That's where you're going to find that information right there. We'll go over these different codes here in just 1 minute. Also, it tells you if it's 203K eligible. It tells you the repair escrow amount. And it tells you where to find the information on the items in the repair escrow. Like, does it need a HVAC? Does it need some kind of plumbing repair? What repairs are needed? You can find that in the PCR, or property condition report, and that's going to be found up there under that gray tab, addendums. Okay, your different listing codes. HUD has these listing codes because what it is, they want to tell you as much information as they can about the property, and they have these codes which also will tell you if it's FHA insurable or not. Your IN code, which is insurable, that means the property meets FHA 203B requirements. No obvious repairs are necessary. If it's an IE code, that's insurable with a repair escrow. That means the property is eligible for FHA 203B, but there's some repairs, there's something out there that needs to be done to bring it up to FHA standards, and that amount would have to be less than $5,000 for that insurable with escrow type loan. Uninsurable, the UI code, that means the property requires a little bit more or a lot more than $5,000 in repairs. It's still 203K eligible, but it's not 203B eligible, so they're calling it uninsured. F code would be just telling you that the property is located in a flood zone and it may need flood insurance to obtain a loan. HOA, that means the property is just covered by a homeowners association and your buyer needs to know that there may be dues required. LBP is your lead-based paint. This means the property was built before 1978 and it may contain lead-based paint. In that case, a lead-based paint addendum and the lead-based paint pamphlet would need to be given to the buyer. What does insured with escrow mean? Over the last 6 years, we've had a lot of questions about this. This is something that we're going to try to go over and try to answer your questions. The FHA 203B with repair escrow loan, it's mainly out there because HUD will not do repairs before closing. This is allowing a property to go FHA if there are repairs totaling less than $5,000 in order to bring it up to FHA standards. By no means is this a gift from HUD. This is money your buyer is going to have to come up with. If your buyer is offering full price, he's going to have to come up with this money in cash at closing. And no repairs can be made before closing. This will actually be above the purchase price. Just say, for instance, your buyer is the property is on the market for $100,000. Your buyer offers $100,000, has a repair escrow of $4,000. That means your buyer is going to have to come up with cash at closing for $4,000 for the escrow amount if he's going FHA to go into an escrow holding account. Plus, he'll have to come up with his down payment and if he's paying closing costs. On the listing for this repair escrow, you will see an itemized list of the required repairs. And that amount is usually the amount of the actual repairs plus a 10% overage because the cost of things may go up by the time the repairs are made. At the closing table, the purchaser will give this amount to be held in an escrow account. The lender will order the repairs to be completed in 90 days. That has to be by a licensed contractor. The FHA inspector, when the work is done, the FHA inspector will go out and inspect, and the contractor will be paid out of the escrow account. If all the money is not used, the money is not just given back to the buyer, but it is applied toward the loan principal. So the buyer will get it back, just not in cash. FHA and the HUD appraisal. This is another area that I hope you all will understand this. This is kind of important because it could affect your buyer. Please keep in mind when the buyer is using FHA financing, if he's using a conventional loan or cash, this won't apply. But if he's using FHA financing, the appraisal that HUD has on file must be used. Even if you think the property is worth twice the amount that HUD has it on the market for, the HUD appraisal must be used when you're using FHA financing. That's that as-is value on your property detail sheet. That as-is value is the actual HUD appraisal value. You cannot use a second appraisal. That means your buyer will be bringing cash to closing. He'll have to have cash at closing. If he or she offers over the asking price, they'll have to come up with that extra money at closing. And if the financing is FHA with the repair escrow, if they're using an FHA loan, they'll have to come up with that repair escrow money in cash at closing. Also, note that the asset company they probably will require a submission of proof of funds and bidding over the asking price for that overage amount. Back to the home page again, I just want to make you familiar with the main things on this home page. Down at the bottom right of your listing information, you have your submit an offer. That's down at the very bottom. It tells you where to submit an offer, the little blue box. And that's where you would go when you're ready. You've got all your paperwork done and you're ready to submit the offer online. And you can get your contract package now if you go back up to your addendums tab, that gray addendums tab. You should have your owner-occupant contract package, your investor contract package, good neighbor next door package. Any package that you should need should be under that addendums tab. When you're submitting an offer, the contract packages, as I just said, are under that addendums tab. The contract package needs to be filled out in entirety before you submit it online. The earnest money must be in certified funds, like always, and the pre-qualification letter must be received before you submit online. It's good to have all this in your hands and filled out before you make a submission online. All signatures on the contract and the addendums and all the initials need to be in blue ink. HUD has required this for a while, and just keep in mind, have a blue pen with you when you're filling out a HUD contract, because your buyer is going to need to sign in blue ink. When you submit the offer, you're going to get a confirmation number. Very important to keep that confirmation number. You're going to need that. I would just print the page. That way you have it right there in writing. And you also, this is something new, they want you to write the confirmation number at the top right-hand side of the sales contract. Of course, no whiteout or liquid paper can be used on contractual documents. That goes without saying. It does appear that each asset company has a slightly different contract package. I'm seeing a slight difference in each contract package. So you want to make sure you're pulling those packages off that addendums tab and not just saving a blank copy and using it, because if it's a different asset company, the contract package could change. The complete original contract package. You can do all this work, but if you don't get this complete contract package into the asset company within 48 hours of acceptance, your bid could be canceled. So as soon as you will actually get an email now, you'll get an email that will notify you that you won the bid. From 48 hours of receipt of the email being sent, you need to have the contract package in their hands within 48 hours. I would definitely send it with some sort of a tracking mode where you have a tracking number and can call and see if it was accepted or received, rather. If the contract package, this is important, if by chance this property, the contract package is not under the addendums tab, don't fret. You can still pull this contract package from the websites of the asset companies. You can go to the contact info tab and it'll tell you who the asset company is. If it's Home Telos, you can go to hometelos.com. Click on, there's a little blue tab about halfway down the screen in the center of the screen. It says Real Estate Professionals. You'll click on that blue tab and the contract and the addendums are listed there individually. If it's an Ofori property, you go to oforireo.com. From your actual web browser, before you click on oforireo.com, it'll give you a list of things you can click on. From the web browser, you can click on Forms, and there will be your contracts and addendums that you need. If it's a PIMCO, you would go to hudpimco.com, go to Forms. I think it's on the right tab on the right there, and the contract packages are listed there as well. If you'll notice on HUDHomestore.com, the addresses that are listed there for the asset companies are incorrect. They may have a Honolulu, Hawaii address on there, but these are the addresses here that you need to send the contract packages to. This webinar will be available for you to review later on if you need to on the SCR website, but I'm going to just read them all for you so that you might have time to write them down if you need to. Telos is Attention Contract Review. 1283 Murfreesboro Pike, Suite 200. That's in Nashville, Tennessee. 37217. Gives your phone number there too, because if you're sending this overnight, you're probably going to need to put a phone number on the package. They require that. If it's in Ofori, it's Ofori and Associates. Attention, Naomi Davis, 2000 Rivers Edge Parkway, Northwest, Suite 300, Atlanta, Georgia, 30328. Hemco Limited is Attention Contract Department, 3525 Piedmont Highway, Building 5, Suite 310, Atlanta, Georgia, 30305. On your this is kind of the items that you'll be sending in your contract package. It's just kind of an overview of each addendum and the contract. You're still using the same exact HUD 9548 sales contract and the condition of sale that prints off with that. Same contract. Remember your blue ink. Electronic filing of the HUD 9548 contract addendum. This is something new that you'll have to have with each contract you send in. It's just real simple. It's just stating that what you have, what you and your buyer have agreed upon and written on the sales contract is what you are submitting online for them. The owner-occupant certification addendum, this is still the same, only if it applies that you would need this, but if your buyer is an owner-occupant, even if this is in a all bidders status, if you have an owner-occupant, there are many benefits to being an owner-occupant with HUD, so you would want to fill out this certification. For your protection, get a home inspection. That's just, HUD's just saying that they want you to get a home inspection. It's for information purposes only, but they do want the buyer to get a home inspection. Radon gas and mold notice. This is, I believe, the same notice that's been out there forever. It's not stating in any way, shape, or form that the property has radon gas or mold. It's just stating that if it possibly did, that HUD is not liable. Pre-qualification letter or certification of funds, you will need that on bank letterhead. Forfeiture and extension policy, I believe this is what they used to call the general addendum. It's just stating that if your buyer backs out for any reason, that it is possible that they could lose their earnest money. It tells you the different categories and what would happen for them to lose their earnest money. And it tells them what it would cost if they needed to do an extension, how much the extension would be. The lead-based paint addendum, that's only if applicable. Flood zone addendum, only if applicable. Your notice to purchaser addendum that's only if applicable if your purchaser offers over the asking price. It's just disclosing to them that they are offering over the asking price. Earnest money check with earnest money certification form. So they've now got an earnest money certification form, and the earnest money check is actually sent in with the contract package now. That's another big change. We used to put it in the selling broker's trust account. Now it's actually going in with the contract package being made out to HUD, HUD. All signatures in blue ink. And just remember that earnest money check, it is a change in that it is going in with the contract package. Things that HUD has noticed that are constant or pretty regular mistakes on the sales contract are on your sales contract lines 1, 2, and line 13. That's going to be your buyer's name, how your buyer wants his name on the deed, and then line 13, I believe, is the signature line. All of these lines have to be the exact same. There cannot be any variations in your buyer's name. That's something to take into consideration as you're doing the contract. All signatures and initials, again, in blue ink. You don't want to use a highlighter because that could keep the blue ink from showing up as blue ink. If the purchaser is an LLC or a corporation, you must have a copy of the corporation papers stating who can sign for that corporation sent in with the contract. Earnest money, again, it must be in certified funds, must be made out to HUD, HUD, and sent in with the accepted contract package. The earnest money is it's staying the same. If the sales price of the property is $50,000 or under, $500. If it's $50,001 or over, it's $1,000. And if it happens to be a vacant lot, it's half of the list price of the property. Additional sales contract notes. HUD will still pay up to 3% closing costs on if the buyer requests it. The dollar amount of that 3% closing cost needs to go on the line 5 of your sales contract. The selling commission, this is another slight change. On your selling commission, HUD will pay up to 3% commission to the selling broker. That's your line 6A. And you'll want to be sure to write the dollar amount. You don't want to just write 3 because you might just get $3 in commission. So make sure you're putting the dollar amount there. You won't make that mistake but one time, believe me. Line 6B, this is a change. Where line 6B used to be always 0, now line 6B you will put in 3%. That'll be the listing broker commission. You'll put in the dollar amount for 3%. And on the online submission that you're submitting online, this amount will pre-populate. So you want to make sure you put it on your written contract the same, so your net to HUD will be the same. Line 7, that's the big line that HUD looks at when they're looking at these contracts. That's their net to HUD. That's the number that they're looking at. That's the way they can determine if the bid is acceptable.
Let me talk to you just a few minutes about contract submission. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. We recognize that sometimes in order to get that contract in 48 hours, we maybe rush, and we're all human and make mistakes. We're asking you, and HUD is asking you, to submit the contract and addendums that are associated with that contract correctly the first time. So please review what you're doing on that contract so that you don't take a chance on maybe your buyer losing that property. Do your contract package, make sure it's all correct before sending it in. Again, remember, those checks go to HUD, does not go to the listing broker or to the selling broker. It goes to HUD, and make sure they're in certified funds. Now, rest assured that we're here to try to help you, so please feel free to contact us as a listing broker. There's other listing brokers in South Carolina. But if you have questions, we are here to review that package and to help you before you send it in. Recognize there are some nuances and some differences in the package, but we want to try to help you. So the listing brokers are here to make every effort to help you with the contract package so that it's done correctly the first time. Talking about offer acceptance, and this is why it's so important for everyone listening to me now to have your broker go in and sign up on the HUD Home Store site today, because basically after that broker goes in and signs up and you put your email in there as an authorized bidder for HUD properties, the asset company will then have your email so that the asset company can notify you through email that your bid is accepted. That's the way they notify you when you have an accepted bid. So that's why it's vitally important that you and your broker sign up today. Please keep an eye also on your spam and junk mail folders, because sometimes our computers are set up to throw stuff into spam, and we want to make sure that if you do get a notification that you have an opportunity to get that in order for you to get your offer in within that 48-hour period. Let me talk to you about home inspections just a second. This is very important. HUD highly recommends that your buyer has a home inspection completed on that property. And from the time that contract is accepted, you have 15 days after after receiving that seller signed contract to complete a home inspection. Of course, in order for you to get that authorization to get that home inspection, you need to send the request form under those addendums to the asset manager. Now, this is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, there are no repairs. I don't care if they're having to close the day that they're moving into the state. There are no repairs done on any HUD properties until after closing. They will not allow any repairs to be done before closing. That's the reason you have the escrow on these properties, is that escrow is held until after it closes, and then within that 90-day period after it closes, you're able to do your repairs and have it inspected. So no repairs until after closing. Selling agents also, once you get the property under contract, anytime the buyer or an inspector or an appraisal desires to go out to the property, you are to accompany them to these HUD properties. So that's very important. Do not send somebody out and let's say that an inspector from HUD comes by and they see someone out there that is not supposed to be there. They let them know that you authorized them. It could get you into a lot of trouble. So we don't want that to happen. We want you to be able to keep your NAID number and keep current, so you have to accompany everyone that goes out there, whether they're inspectors, appraisers, or the buyer. Make sure you read the PCR, and of course that abbreviation means your property condition report. And because this property condition report gives you information, there are a few properties that will have a note in the property condition report that the water conditions are unsatisfactory and that you're not to turn the water on. That's why it's important for you to make sure you read that PCR, because you don't want your buyer to get their heart set on the property and then not be able to turn the water on. Look at the PCR. There's some lenders that need a full inspection, and they may need the water on or whatever. It may affect the financing. So look at the PCR report, the property condition report on any particular property. Remember also that the PCR, though it's not a guarantee or a warranty, it's full of great information that will tell you about the property and the condition the property is in. Pre-closing walkthrough. Let's talk about that just a minute. HUD recommends that you do a complete walkthrough of the property that you have under contract the day prior to closing. Now, this is something that's a little bit different. The lockbox, we are asked a lot of times by our asset management company, may be removed before this time, before the day before closing. So if this is the situation and you do not have a key or a way to get into the lockbox, coordinate with us as a listing broker, and you can come by the office and retrieve a key. We're glad to help you with that. So you look under the proper tab and give us a call. We're more than happy to do that. And then if there are additional problems, make sure that you get in touch with that asset manager concerning any issues that you may have. Let's talk about lender documents and the closing. Make sure that your lender is aware, and this is very important. All the closing documents need to be sent to the HUD closing agent, and in this case it's O'Brien Law Firm, at least 5 days, that's 5 days prior to the close. And after a property closes, make sure that your buyer is aware how important, how extremely important it is for them to rekey their home immediately after the closing at their own expense. We appreciate the ideas and the feedback that you can give, and we ask everyone that has attended this webinar to please give us feedback, ideas, and concerns that you may have, because you're the ones that drive change that's needed to make the process smoother and to also improve the processes we have. We need your feedback. Thank you for